All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started. Kelsey, is that okay, or do you want to wait a
Oh,
couple
yeah,
minutes?
yeah. I'm
Okay.
set.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Career Services Job Search Basics session, deciding which path is right for you, a master's or a doctorate. My name is Taylor, and I am the STEM Senior Career Coach here at APUS. I earned my Master of Education right here at APUS, and I'm really excited to help guide you through today's discussion and information on deciding whether that graduate degree is a good fit for you. And then joining us today is Kelsey. Kelsey, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much, Taylor. Thanks for inviting me, Career Services, to come here and talk about this. It's something I'm passionate about. So I'm Dr. Kelsey Hoteling. I earned my EDD in Higher Education Leadership and Organizational Studies from Bay Path University in 2024. So the experience of going to and through a doc program is still fairly recent. And I'm really here today to just shed light on my own experiences with doc programs and to provide some insight and food for thought if you're ever considering that level of study.
Great. And thank you, Kelsey, for being here again with us today. Your insight is going to be very, very valuable. We will be taking questions at the end of this presentation, so we'll have an open discussion for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat too. We do have Meredith here, who's another career coach, who can also help facilitate answering some questions if you have any, or hold them for the end of today's presentation. So feel free to interact as much as you would like. Would love to learn more about you guys throughout this presentation. So let's talk about the agenda and some things we're going to be diving into, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to making a really big decision. So we're going to dive into some key topics to help you decide which graduate path, a master's or doctorate, is right for you, or if it is right for you, if you are deciding between which one, or if you'll really go for it. We'll start by exploring why someone might pursue a graduate degree, and how to determine whether you need one for your career goals, or if it's for lifelong learning, depending on what it is that you're interested in and why you'd go for it. And then we're going to look into how to evaluate your readiness and return on investment for deciding on a graduate program, both financially and professionally. We're also going to touch base on some personal considerations, the importance of networking, and how to research programs effectively, because as we know, that's going to be an important component into choosing which one's right if you do decide this is what you're going to go for. So from there, we're also going to discuss academic and faculty factors, what to expect in terms of application materials for these programs, funding, and how to set yourself up for success going to a graduate school. And then we're going to wrap up with just the overall takeaway from today's presentation, and we'll be able to move forward into the discussions and the questions you might have. All right, so there are various reasons as to why one should consider pursuing a master's degree, and even a doctorate. For some, it's about career advancement, such as qualifying for specialized roles, meeting the requirements for leadership positions if you're looking to move up, or just standing out in a competitive job market. As we know right now, this market is very, very competitive, so that master's degree or even doctorate might help bump you up in your job applications. For others considering it, it might just be a way to continue personal growth by deepening expertise, building confidence, and avoiding stagnation and learning, wanting to keep current with the trends and things happening. If you are in your dream role already, but wanting to stay current, this could be a reason that you decide to choose that master's degree more specifically, and possibly even that doctorate. Another reason for someone to consider their why are the opportunities it can create for them, whether it's transitioning into a new field or preparing them to move forward into that doctoral program. And then when deciding whether to earn that master's, for myself, I took the time to reflect on my own why and what this looked like. Personally, I really wanted to challenge myself and to keep learning. So I was the one who who fell into that continued learning category for my why. But not just that, professionally, I recognize that advancing in higher education, because I love being in higher ed. I've been in it for over 6 years. This is where I belong. But in order for me to continue to grow into some leadership roles, that usually requires, or at least prefers, that master's degree. So I knew if I went to advance in my career, then I was going to need need to have that master's. So I was also fortunate enough into my why, evaluating what's going to be right for me, if it was going to be right, the chance to earn my degree at no cost. So this helped me really to make my decision even more worthwhile because that kind of opportunity was too good of an opportunity to really pass up for me to be able to earn my degree, which is going to assist me personally in my continued learning, but also professionally. And really the things that helped me keep in mind as to why I was committed to completing my program. And those were my whys for really sticking it out too. Like where or when would I ever be able to have this opportunity at no cost degree, right? Or to help myself set myself up for future long-term career success. And not to be stagnant in where I am or kind of stuck where I am, to be able to be fluid and move as I would like to, and not having that hold me back down the road. So, a master's program can really also serve as a valuable preparation, offering advanced research experience and academic training. It's often that credential needed for careers too. So, I know I mentioned for me to be able to move up into leadership or even management positions, but for others, a master's could be required, and that could be your why. That maybe one day you might want to be an epidemiologist or a counselor or various other professions out there that do require that graduate level education. So that might be your why. If in order to obtain that career, this is what you're going to have to go for. And as you think about your own journey, take that moment to reflect on what is your why. Is it about advancing your career, fueling your passion for lifelong learning, or opening doors to those new opportunities? Understanding your motivation can help guide you in your decision and give purpose to the effort you put into the graduate education. When you are in that program, how you're going to dedicate yourself, how you're going to commit yourself. These are the things to think about when really finding out your purpose into pursuing this program. So, and if you're thinking about that doctoral path, Kelsey, I would love to hear some thoughts and insights. So please go ahead and share some information you have on why pursuing that doctorate degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I wanted to kind of address there's so many different types of doctoral programs, so I'll do my best to just give a quick overview here. I think a lot of people, when they think about a doctorate, they think about a PhD, which is a research-focused degree. So this is a good pathway if you're interested in becoming like a university professor and getting tenure and making research output and research production your livelihood. So that's the usual pathway for a PhD. There are several categories of what we call applied doctorates. So these programs, these types of programs are more focused on advancing your practical experience or leadership within a given field. So, for example, I have an EDD, a doctorate of education. My research involved doing an organizationally based study that was focused on providing practical outcomes and suggestions for a unique organizational problem. This is also true for our university, APUS, their Doctor of Global Security and Doctor of Strategic Intelligence. The focus of these programs is mastering the subject and then applying that mastered knowledge to address a unique problem within that field. Categories we may not always think about with doctorates. Well, I guess MDs, medical doctors, of course they're doctors, but these are applied doctorates. So they require a lot of class time and practical experiences where you gain requisite knowledge in the field. And there's often a large research component with MDs as well. The JD, the Juris Doctor, that's the lawyer's academic credential. That's a doctorate. It's an applied doctorate. Much of their schooling experience is learning about the law and how to apply it in complex settings. But really what's common with this level of study is the amount of rigor that's involved. And we'll get kind of into the nitty-gritty with rigor and sort of the holistic view of what that may mean in terms of personal life and balancing all of those things. But yeah, that's my overview of a doctorate. There's a lot of different kinds. I didn't even get into the DNP, which is the Doctor of Nursing.
Thanks, Kelsey. So let's talk about how to determine if you need a master's degree and a doctorate. This starts with identifying your why, as we just talked about. Why are you considering your graduate school, or why are you considering graduate school in the first place? Is this for continued learning, or is it tied to a specific career goal? Really reflect on that why component to be able to help determine if you're going to need this. So when I speak to students who are preparing or who are already in a master's program, most of them are doing it because their why is career driven. So if that's the case for you, start by identifying your career goal. What role are you aiming for? Then take that next step to research job postings and identify what level of education is required. Check out professional association guidelines, licensing board requirements, certification requirements. You want to understand the minimum educational requirements for your target role. So when researching the roles of interest, look for patterns. And this includes, does the role consistently require a master's degree, or is it preferred but not essential? Maybe the role will one day require or prefer a doctorate, so you'll need a master's. So those are things to think about in your research and to jot down in your notes. Um, in many industries, a master's is a standard for mid to senior level positions, advanced specialization, or even entry into those regulated fields like counseling, education, or public health. So it can be a great gateway to those leadership roles or career transitions, or just making sure you secure that job that you're really going for by obtaining that master's. So those would be reasons that you may need that degree. Um, and then once you've confirmed that a master's aligns with your field's expectations, think about your timeline and your level of commitment. And I'm definitely going to highlight that level of commitment for both master's and graduate programs because most programs, more specifically talking on that master's side, they can take you between 1 to 3 years to complete, and that could be part-time or possibly full-time, but it's going to depend on that program and what you're studying. It could be longer. So depending on your program, you might need to attend in person, participate in clinicals, or complete that full-time internship. And you don't want to forget on top of that, there's also coursework that involves research and writing papers. So all of this will take time and active participation. And overall, this master's and doctorate, they're going to hold you to a higher level of standard. So really think about your time and level of commitment to making this decision and determining, do I need one or is this a want? And if I want this, am I willing to make this happen? But if I need it, here's how I'm going to think about how you're going to have to start preparing to make this happen for yourself too. So ask yourself, do I want to gain, when it comes to deciding between this master's or doctorate, do I want to gain work experience first and pursue grad school later? Is this something that can wait for down the road? Like it's a preferred, it's not required. So I can gain some relevant work experience, help build up my application materials and network and make sure that this is really what I want to study for. Or is this, I need this master's now to move up. I've been in the field, or I can't move on until I have that master's. In order to take my career to that next level, I'm ready to move forward. So think about those things and the committing now. Are you able to commit now? If it's a need or if it's a want? And is this degree continued learning or is it for a strategic move for your career? So really thinking about various different needs when deciding on what's going to be best for you and moving forward. And really, by aligning your career goals with industry standards and assessing your readiness, you'll be able to determine whether you need that master's or possibly even that doctorate. So, but now that we've explored how to determine if a master's degree could be a need, let's shift gears and talk about that doctoral path. And Kelsey, again, is here to be able to provide some of those insights and those personal experiences.
Thanks. And I'll just caveat all of this with that my comments are gonna change really depending on your career goals. What I'm sort
Mhm.
of broadly speaking to is the PhD and like an EDD type of program. So really to start with, you may be surprised to learn that getting a doctorate may not actually boost your career goals. It really depends. I mean, if you want to be a
Mhm.
lawyer, of course you have to get the JD, right? If you want to be a
Yes.
medical doctor, of course you need to get the MD. But if you're just looking to distinguish yourself as a candidate in the job market, and that's your only reason, I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting a doctorate just for that reason alone. It's because really these programs are extremely intensive. And knowing your why, which I'm so appreciative to Taylor for really pointing that out because it is so applicable in the master's and it is so applicable in the doctoral experience. But knowing your why and having an intrinsic internal motivation to complete a degree of this level is really important, I think, to getting you to the finish line. Doctoral programs also take time. I'll get into some more of those specifics as to what that could look like, but it's pretty standard to have about 3 to 5 years of just coursework before you're then turned loose to work on your dissertation. And that can take another 2 to 3 years on top of that. So you're maybe looking at 5 to 7 years of time invested in a program where you'll be working on doing your research and doing coursework full time. And depending on sort of the program that you go with, you might be like a graduate assistant or a teaching assistant where you're also teaching a full course load on top of that. So yeah, that's all I got for these steps.
Thanks. Now let's talk about evaluating your return on investment and readiness. So your ROI and are you ready? When considering that master's degree and your that doctorate, you're going to want to focus on those two key areas. So let's talk about that return on investment. And this is a very honest and straightforward thing to think about because it's a big part when either going to either of these programs. It's always a big thought in terms of school, but definitely, the more you're in it, the higher those costs can be. So consider the cost of a graduate program, including tuition, the time that you have to spend and put into the work that you're doing, and the potential loss of income if you step away from work. Then weigh these costs against the benefits, such as, will this provide me with higher earning potential, expand career opportunities, or advancement in the field? So those are going to be things to consider when it comes to that return on investment. Is it going to boost you where you want to be boosted? Are you okay with not being boosted like that? Are you just, it comes back to that why. In some industries, a master's degree provides clear advantage, and others, experience and certifications may carry more weight. And what I mean by this is that, for example, in the IT and cybersecurity field, employers often prioritize that 5 to 7 years of hands-on experience for entry-level roles and professional credentials and certifications over advanced degrees. Not saying they don't prefer them, they might want that master's for mid to senior level role, but they're going to be focused on that experience and certifications. So that's where that research is going to come in handy. In contrast, fields like healthcare or public health, they typically require that master's degree and offer that stronger ROI. A master's can also supplement experience, so that's something to think about as well. And what I mean by this is that you might see on some job announcements that a master's, like you might need 1 to 5 years of experience. A master's may supplement 1 to 2 of those years of experience. So those are things to think about too. So that's particularly important, especially if you are transitioning into a field that's brand new to you and you need to meet those qualifications that would otherwise take years to gain. So a master's may be a better leeway for you in terms of filling in that experience gap. But that's again where research is going to be important in prioritizing that return on investment, what's going to be best for you in those career goals, if that's the reason you're going for it, which is typically the reason I hear people going for it. So those are things to consider. And then your readiness. So next, assess your preparedness for graduate level study. I talked about time commitment. Kelsey has also mentioned that time commitment aspect and just dedication to it. A strong undergraduate record, relevant internships, and professional experience are all very good indicators of your readiness. And these factors not only strengthen your application, but also help you to succeed once you begin the program. So go through and reflect on how your bachelor's program went for you. What were some of the strengths and weaknesses? Thinking about what you did during that program, if you've worked full-time or if you've done internships, depending on those different things, what's helped prepare you for that graduate level study. Look into or even reach out to people who have done graduate level work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a couple of slides, but this can help you determine, am I ready now? Do I need a little bit more tutoring? Do I need to take another couple of courses under my belt to prepare? Sometimes you have those prerequisite requirements. So just really go through and think about, am I ready to do this now? Is my performance where I want it to be both academically and professionally? Kelsey, any insights for the doctorate side of things?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Beyond the monetary, well, I guess this is all tied in to the monetary investment, of course, caveat asterisk around all of this. It really depends on what program you're looking at and what school specifically that you're looking at.
Mhm.
Many PhD programs, for example, they require you to move to that location. There are certainly a lot of online institutions that have that flexibility, but to Taylor's point, and I'll speak about my own experience. Um, when I enrolled in my EDD, I was able to maintain my full-time job here. So I didn't have to step away and have a loss of income. It did mean I was adding about 20 to 30 hours of work a week on top of my full-time job. But that was important to me that I not lose on my career experience. And step away from my job solely to pursue the doctorate. But that was just the way that that program was set up. Plenty of traditional universities, if you're looking at a PhD program, they may require that move because they may require in classroom time. It could be for many things, clinical hours, instruction time, if you have a graduate assistantship with that institution. Um, and I will say, if you get a TA or a GA position, this really normally helps to offset the tuition costs a lot. So that's another thing to kind of keep in the balance there. Because if you're able to kind of get paid and not have heavy tuition costs, that's a pretty good deal. And in assessing academic and professional readiness for doc programs, I really want to emphasize here that you probably should check your academic ego at the door. And I say that because, well, nobody gets kind of to that level of study without being smart and applying yourself and knowing yourself. You really should be going in with reasonably polished research and writing skills, but you'll get thrown in the deep end right away. Your coursework will be demanding and it will instantly make you start working on those writing and research skills. You'll get that intense feedback right away. But in terms of professionalism and professional readiness and looking at programs, you really should be going in and treating that environment professionally, like a workplace, honestly. You're among colleagues. You'll really start in that environment as a novice, but on the way, you'll gain confidence and skills. And your instructors will start with that kind of instructor-student dynamic. But as you move on, you'll notice that the journey shifts a little bit, and there will be a time and a point where your instructors become your colleagues. And that's kind of one of the most exciting times where they're trusting you like they would trust a colleague. So that kind of speaks to the sort of professional journey at that level of study. And you can move on, Taylor.
Thank you. It's all great information and insight, and it's important to know, when you're evaluating your readiness. So now we're going to talk about, and this is it kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about with the readiness part of things and the ROI, but those personal considerations and the networking component. When evaluating whether you're going to pursue that master's degree or doctorate, it's really important to look beyond academics and really consider your personal life. And your personal life involves that support system and leveraging your network that you have. Graduate school can be very demanding. So think about the people and resources that will help you stay on track is going to be very essential. Ask yourself some key questions. There's a lot of reflection happening through this presentation, but it's really important to really know where you're at when it comes to making this really big decision. If you're working, so ask yourself some questions. If you're working full time or have a family, what support will you have to stay committed to school? Do you have flexibility from your employer or management, such as adjusted hours or tuition assistance? What resources does the program provide to support you and your success, like tutoring, mentorship, career services? What will be available to you? What will be your tools in your toolkit and within your support system? Because having That support is what can help keep you committed to starting and finishing your program, right? And it's also really important to think about balancing school with your other responsibilities, family, health, and your self-care. Self-care is so important going through these programs, especially if you are, like Kelsey said, she worked full time while doing her doctorate. I am sure she'll speak to the self-care component too a little bit. But even when I was going through my master's program and trying to balance family and life and work, because I also worked full time while going through my master's, and there were times that I had to step away to take care of myself and to also put my family first. And sometimes that meant communicating with my professor and saying, "Hey, this is where I'm at. Is there flexibility?" Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, but it never hurts to ask. And knowing where your professors stand in that program for that support. And don't underestimate them. Don't underestimate the power of your support network. Friends, family, and peers, they can all provide that encouragement that you need and help you navigate some of those challenges along the way. Being that soundboard if you need to vent or to practice. My concentration was in career coaching, and I had to do practice run throughs. And my family, I career coached them for those recordings. So they can be there to support you in various different ways throughout your program, whether it is just being your cheerleader, like you've got this, or actually participating in your academic work. So they're just a really key component. And then taking the time to reflect on personal considerations will help you to ensure that you're prepared for the demands of graduate school and position both academic and professional success. So um, in addition to considering that support, I also mentioned networking. It is helpful to speak with people who have already earned the degree that you're interested in pursuing. Reach out to professionals in your field, ask about their experiences. Why did they choose? What was their why? Why did they choose the master's? How it affected their career? What was the impact it made? And what do they wish they had known beforehand? Because there's always things we wish we knew before getting ourselves into something, no matter what it is. So gaining those insights beforehand, those conversations can really offer those practical insights to help you decide whether that master's or even that doctorate degree is the right move for you, your goals, and your current circumstances. So, Kelsey, what are some insights when it comes to the doctorate side of things?
Yeah, and I'll kind of just speak to my own
Mhm.
personal experience here, but I think it's pretty applicable to this level of study. No matter the type of doc program you're looking into, this level of study requires a lot of attention and a lot of dedication, and sometimes does require sacrifice at times.
Mhm.
Was terrible at saying no to things. I got a lot better at learning how to say no in my doc program. Um, just to sort of illustrate a story around the time dedication that it is, I planned and had my wedding when I was in my EDD program. So I was like, that's amazing. It's possible, right? You can balance things, but it's a moving target all the time. But not even a week after my wedding, I had to go on a plane to Massachusetts to go to my residency for school. I put off my honeymoon for a full year as well. And even when I was on my honeymoon, I had required school meetings that I had to attend, 6 hour time difference, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So there, and I say this, I'm not complaining about it because I did know what I signed up for, right? But it just shows that there's a level of dedication that needs to be present even when life is happening around you. And this totally applies to master's programs as well. You're in school, life doesn't stop around it. Like we all have stressors. Sometimes we experience loss and we're dealing with grief in the middle of this stressful thing, right? So, what is so important is having a good support network and knowing what that looks like and being able to express your needs to your support network. So, there's a level of emotional intelligence involved because my husband may not have totally understood what it is that I was stressed about or complaining about. He's nodding along to what it is that I'm saying, but he did understand his role in being supportive of me and being a confidant to me and kind of letting me vent my stressors. And, in terms of self-care, it's it's like with any part of life, it's always a moving target. It really just depends on what's on your plate. Sometimes you take it day by day, sometimes you take it week by week, sometimes you take it minute by minute, right? It truly is like everything else. But as far as step 7 and talking to professionals in the field, I think this is incredibly important if you're looking at a doctoral program. Connect with people in your intended field, your intended career field, to see if a doc program is a good fit for what you're looking at.
Mhm.
And if it is, talk to them about their experience and going to school, where they went, why, what were their motivators. Not only can you get that lived experience from them, but they may even recommend pathways that you haven't even considered before. I had a great mentor here a couple of years ago. I remember talking to her ad nauseum about PhD versus EDD. What do I do? I'm looking at this program. I get no X, Y, and Z. And she really took the time to talk to me about that, those opportunities, where it may lead me. And ultimately, I think in academia, we kind of have this perception that PhDs are sort of at the top. They're sort of the top caliber level of academic credential. Um, I ended up going with an EDD because I'm in administration, I'm an administrator. And so it made much more sense for me to go to a program that's going to give me practical hands-on research skills so I can affect change sort of within my career path. So that just ended up being my pathway. And I don't know that I would have gotten there without having that mentor in my mind and having her coaching to sort of encourage me to think about all those options and giving me that insight. So yeah, I can't, recommend it enough. If you're looking to go that route, to go to that level of study, talk to folks who have those credentials. Also, don't be nervous about it, especially if you're kind of like cold contacting somebody. People love talking about themselves. Trust me. They love talking about their experience and themselves, especially academics. So
Mhm.
I'll leave
Yes.
with that.
I giggle because it's absolutely true, especially when you've earned that, right? It's something to be very proud of. So those people want to be able to pass along their knowledge and expertise to those upcoming. So yes, utilize your network, um, maximize it, even if they are brand new people. Now let's talk about researching graduate programs. So you've decided you need one, you're going for it. When exploring graduate programs, start by identifying schools that offer the degree and focus area you're interested in. Confirm that both the institution and the program are properly accredited, as this does affect the value of your degree, eligibility possibly for financial aid, and if applicable, licensure. So carefully review each program's admission requirements as well. Most programs have prerequisites such as a minimum undergraduate GPA. Depending on the field, you may also need entrance exams like the GRE, GMAT, LSAT, or other master level tests, depending on the program, depending on that school. Official transcripts from previous institutions are typically required as well. So, knowing the prerequisite courses that you might have to take that are necessary for eligibility will be important to research and to look into as well to verify that you meet all course requirements before applying. So, a program that I can think about is I work with students who are in our sports and health sciences bachelor's degree program, but they want to become physical therapists. So, our degree specifically, we don't have that physical therapy degree, but we meet a lot of the prerequisite requirements for when they go off into that program. So that's something they have to evaluate, and I coach through them just to make sure they research the program they want to transfer to and they're meeting those course requirements, that GPA part of things, sometimes clinicals too, to help boost that resume. So those are things to think about when you're researching the graduate programs. What is going to be required of me, and where am I at now, and what do I still need to get or do to be prepared to go off into being that competitive candidate for the program. And then beyond admissions criteria, consider how well the program aligns with your professional and personal goals and values. Does it offer the courses and specializations or even career pathways that you're seeking? So, for example, APUS, we have a master's in psychology, but it does not qualify our graduates to become licensed counselors, psychologists, or psychiatrists, as it lacks the program specific accreditation and clinical experience. So if a person were to take the master's here and they were like, oh, I'm going to sit for the licensing exam, they don't meet the requirements for that. So making sure that your program has the specific accreditation needed will be essential. And similarly, a degree in human services or sociology, it does not qualify students to become licensed social workers or even social workers. You can get adjacent roles to social workers, but you won't be able to get that social work title because there is a specific degree for social workers and there's a specific accreditation for a social work program. Accreditation matters at both the bachelor's, master's, and probably even that doctoral level, especially if that licensure or certification is a part of your career path or looking to move forward. I know there are social work programs out there that don't have accreditation at all. And so going to that master's, it could impact them with getting accepted because that program's not accredited. So those are things to heavily research and ensure that that program aligns with your career pathway and what you're looking to do. Also evaluate the program support system, such as mentoring, alumni networks, professional organizations, or university organizations that you can be a part of. These resources can be very valuable for career development and academic support. Reaching out to the program directly can also provide some insights that might not be available on the website or the brochures you're seeing. This is a big part of the research because as we just talked about, support is going to be everything for this level of work. So knowing what's going to be in your corner to support you academically, you need to know what you need um, to be able to be successful. So an example of talking about learning more and reaching out. When I was deciding between 2 schools, I had one this was for my undergrad, but it is applicable at all levels. I was deciding between 2 schools. One program chair, I mean, I set up a meeting with 2 program chairs, and one only spent about 15 minutes with me, gave me some short answers, which really left me feeling very undervalued as a prospective student. In contrast, the chair at the school I ultimately chose to graduate from and go to, they spent an hour discussing my questions, providing detailed responses and interactions, and asking me questions in a way of making sure that ensuring that their program was a good fit for me and helping me to evaluate that. So that interaction showed me that the program was going to be invested in its students because it was invested in me as a prospective student. Even before enrollment, I hadn't even applied to either of these universities. So, and that's what I needed, and I felt valued and that I was going to be valued. And during that interaction, they talked about all of the support, talked about career success and licensure. I believe they had um, every student who in the program passed the licensing exam was 100%. So finding out those stats and details, very important. And I was highly impressed with what he had to say to me. I didn't get any of that type of information from the other university. Maybe their stats were just as great. Um, and then the tutoring and support because I writing isn't my forte, so tutoring was going to be important, and I was able to get that there with that school in general. Um, so those are things to think about and to ask those questions. Reach out. Don't be scared to reach out to those prospective schools to gain and get more information on what's going to be able or who will be able to support you. Um, and really assessing what you'll receive and making sure that school is committed to your success. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it along to Kelsey for any additional insights.
Yeah, thank you so much. That I think all of those, and to answer Daniel's question, because it popped up, absolutely. Send a cold email. If you have the email
Mhm.
contact for a department head, just email them and see if they respond. That's not a problem.
And that's exactly what
Um,
I did. I sent an
yep.
email out to both of them.
Yeah,
I was able to find their information on the school website
absolutely.
and introduced myself, told them what I was
Yeah.
looking for, if we could set up a meeting, and
Mhm.
that's what it was. So
Yeah, 100%. Most of the time, these folks are accessible, and if they're
mhm.
not, then maybe that's a clue in to that experience. So
Absolutely.
I'd like to really just underline everything that Taylor has said because all of this applies to that doc experience as well. Just sort of know thyself. What is it you think you're going to need in terms of support? And
Mhm.
in speaking to sort of graduate admissions or that department head, really talk to them about the makeup of that program and how they're invested in your success. So, going back to personal stories here, I feel like so being in education, this university has 2 doctoral programs. I've seen the back end of it. I've seen how they run. So I kind of knew going in what it is that I would want and need in terms of support. And so for me, it was really important that whatever program I chose had a cohort model, which means I'm taking most of my coursework with the same group of people throughout that time. I wanted to connect with people who are experiencing the same challenges, frustrations, and triumphs all throughout that time. And that cohort model got me through the program. They're in my dissertation dedication. Said, guys, we did it. There were times where, especially when we were in that dissertation writing phase, we would just get on Zoom calls and do writing sprints. We didn't even say anything to each other. It was just dedicated time to work on something together. When I was stuck on my dissertation's literature review and maybe venting to my support network, my husband, he didn't really understand what it is specifically that I was upset about. I called someone from my cohort and I boohooed about it. And I needed that kind of colleague support system, that shoulder to shoulder support system, because nobody understands sort of being in the trenches of a doc program like other students do. And I tell you this because I knew what was important to me and what I wanted out of the experience. Because not only did I want and need the doctorate at the end of the day, but I wanted a program that was designed for my success. So, as an education professional, I knew going in, most students at this level of study fall out in about the first semester or when they get through all their coursework and are writing their dissertation. Most people drop out when they're writing their dissertation. So it was extremely important to me that I talk to the program leadership about how they designed their dissertation writing process so I wouldn't fall off at the end there, right when you see the finish line. And I asked them questions about support mechanisms. We had a writing coach that was embedded in every single one of our first year classes. What? That's amazing. And if you were kind of identified as somebody who needed a little bit more assistance with your writing skills, you got one-on-one time with them. So not only was I, drinking from the fire hose in terms of learning content, I was also really polishing my writing skills because we had somebody totally there invested in helping our writing. So in speaking with potential schools, really think about those questions about experience and talk to those admissions counselors and, email those department heads too. They'll hopefully give you some face time. I think at that level of study, especially, they're really dedicated in wanting to see well-qualified candidates get into their program too. I'll kind of speak to that at the end. Over to you, Taylor. Oh, here's my cat.
Thanks.
I knew he would.
Love it. So when evaluating graduate schools, academic and faculty considerations are and should be top priority for you. Similar to what I was saying, the one department chair spent a lot of time investing in me, but also super qualified, and the other one was as well. But comparing them, one was still better in terms of academic performance than another, maybe not performance, but in terms of what they've accomplished than the other. So thinking about who's leading you, are they a good person to follow? Think about that. It's really important to consider the quality of faculty and available research opportunities to you during either of these programs, doctorate, master's. Look for programs that offer strong mentoring for academic development, applied research projects, publishing opportunities, faculty supported initiatives. Understand the program's capstone requirements, such as thesis, internship, or practicum. And how does that all operate to determine whether the program aligns with your learning style and your professional goals. So that there's going to be a good bit that goes into knowing faculty and what they're providing you, their level of experience and education, to ensure they're going to educate you to your level of expectations, because that's going to be really important too. What are your expectations of who's teaching you and guiding you? So those are some things to think about when it comes to that master's and doctorate level.
Yeah, there's I think that this relationship, that academic and faculty relationship, is deeply important at this level of study. And excuse me, this works nicely with what I was just saying about finding a program that's supportive and has the features that you need, because
Yeah.
this relationship is integral at this level. So ask yourself, what do you want to get out of this academically? Do you want to publish? If so, what kind of work are the faculty in the program doing? What kind of research do they do? So what are those areas? Do they align with your interests? And they don't necessarily have to, but maybe there's something you could learn about what it is that they're doing and co-author as well. That's sometimes a possibility. At this level, your relationship with your faculty can truly make or break your experience. So doctoral programs, again, I'm kind of speaking to the PhD, EDD, even APUS's DGS and DSI have this. So you have a dissertation. That's the culminating experience, and that requires what's called a dissertation chair and a dissertation committee. Your entire committee has to sign off on your dissertation. There will be, I don't even want to know how many times and rounds of feedback that have to happen on each chapter of your dissertation, and you can't move forward until you have a sign off from your chair and your committee. You, again, will be in the trenches with your committee, and sometimes they'll be adding feedback that you're like, well, that completely contradicts what you said last time you sent me this feedback. So it's a lot of it's an intersection of emotional intelligence with kind of committee management at the same time, because it goes both ways.
Mhm.
And if you have fundamental differences in your academic perspective or your working perspective, that relationship with your committee and chair can be what lifts you up, or it can be a constant battle. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these faculty. And that's what I have here.
Thank you. All right, so now let's talk about the application materials and funding aspect. We talked a little bit a couple slides ago about some of the required pieces, but when you're putting together your graduate school application, there are several key pieces that you definitely want to pay attention to. First, those transcripts. Most programs again require official transcripts from previous institutions, especially if those prerequisite courses are in there that you need to meet. So double check that you've completed everything that you've needed to academically, GPA, courses, and that those courses will transfer, because the accreditation of your school does matter to ensure that those courses transfer are accepted before you apply. Most programs will also ask for a resume or a CV. So on those, you want to highlight your relevant work experience, internships, research projects, volunteer work, anything that shows your skills, your growth, and your dedication to your academics and your professional career goals, or where you're at in your career. Some programs might even go further and require that interview. You might see this a little bit more in those doctorate programs, possibly a portfolio, or there might be another type of assessment to see if you're a good fit for the program as well. You might have to do a writing prompt. So there are a couple different things, and that's on the master's and that doctorate level. And then next is your personal statement. This is your chance to tell the admissions team who you are, why you want this degree, and how it fits in with your goals, whether it's academic or professional. So when you're writing this personal statement, you want to be clear, specific, and connect it to, again, your professional path and your academic goals, and how this degree is going to benefit you, and how you're going to take this experience and apply it, because that's going to be really important. An important aspect to include in that personal statement too is how not only how you will benefit this degree program and what you're aspiring, but how this degree program that you're doing, you're going to be able to take with you as you go. So those are things to think about when it comes to that personal statement. And then letters of recommendation, always a hot topic, whether it is your job search, internship, and academic schools. Letters of recommendation are a really important piece, and can be heavily influenced for your application process. So programs usually want 2 to 3 letters from professors, supervisors, or professionals who can speak to your abilities, your work ethic, academics, and your overall potential, right? Your room for growth. Do do you look to grow? Are you seeking those opportunities? Are you trying to better yourself in different aspects of life? It's a good idea to maintain positive relationships. So when you're thinking, oh, I might need a letter of recommendation next year for a program I'm applying for, or you look and you see that that's something that you're going to need, in general, overall, it's a good idea to maintain positive relationships with mentors, supervisors, professors throughout your career, not just when you need a letter, because one, they're your network. They are your people. They are your go-to. They are your support, whether it's for a job or for that um, academic aspect. And this is a way throwback, but I took Spanish in college. It was my third year, and I was really struggling. And I reached out to my high school teacher. Like we maintained a relationship that she helped tutor me. Um, and there were other service there weren't quite specific Spanish speaking services and tutoring at my school. So I reached out to her, and that she actually ended up being a letter of recommendation for me when I traveled abroad to Guatemala. So maintaining relationships can make a profound impact academically and also professionally when you are ready to take a next step in your career or academics. So when you reach out for that letter of recommendation, make sure to include why you're asking them, the program details of to what you're applying, any instructions the school provides. They might have specific things that they want included in that recommendation for that person to speak to. So it's going to be important that you include that information. And the key thing I really want to make sure to tell you is that when you're asking them if that person will give you a letter of recommendation, is that you say, will you provide me a positive recommendation? Will you be a positive reference for me? So think carefully about who to ask. And you might think, well, I'm asking them for a letter of recommendation. Of course, it's going to be positive. Not always. They'll give you a recommendation, but it might be more of a brutally honest type of recommendation. So really, really think, excuse me, think through who you want to be your reference, who can speak to your qualities, both good and areas of growth, because you want it to be honest. We're not all perfect, but that's where that potential aspect and piece comes through, and maintain relationships throughout with various people. So that way you can have that reference letter when that time comes. And oh, also the other thing is I wanted to bring up, since we are at an online school, something I hear often is, I'm on an online school. I can't get a professor to write a recommendation for me. I don't ever see them. I don't talk to them. How do I get my recommendation? Well, the great thing is our professors are always wanting to connect with you. So attending their office hours if they have any available. And if they don't, emailing them, usually they're still open to meeting with you, emailing and say, hey, can I have an hour to connect with you? Whether it's talking about the class, career, interests, professors want to connect with you. So start building those relationships now, sending emails, touching base periodically can be very, very helpful at maintaining a relationship with your professors online, taking those steps to ensure that one day when you need that recommendation, you reach out and say, hey, I took these different classes with you. We've met several times, and, kind of giving that refresher, especially if it's been a couple of years. I would love to either reconnect with you or get, time to meet with you, because I think you would make a great letter of recommendation for me academically. You saw my growth, you saw the challenges, and you could speak to that. So, because if you reach out now and you've just took a professor's class, they might remember you. You want to make sure you're remembered. So that way you can get that recommendation. Um, so that's just kind of a key piece right now as you're looking. And even if you go to your master's program, if you take an online master's, those still that same concept applies, especially if you do end up going for that doctorate degree. And then finally, let's talk about money, talk about funding. That's sticky like conversation, but this is a big factor in deciding whether you pursue a degree and that ROI, right? So consider how tuition and other costs will affect your timeline. Look into scholarships, grants, employer tuition assistance, or even military benefits. Decide if you'll pay as you go, take out loans or use financial aid, and think about repayment, especially if your intended career won't provide that immediate earning at the level you hoped for. And I say this because I want you to remember that a degree doesn't automatically equal a higher paying job or a job in that field. Um, so keep those things in mind as you're financially planning and looking for funding when getting the degree, especially if it's career focused. And this is also why it's important to research careers in your field, talk to those professionals, maintain a strong network, gain professional experience along the way to help you move up in payment aspects in terms of your salary. showing that you have the licensure, certifications if needed, you have the level of degree desired, and you also have the experience. You are the full package and you have more room to negotiate that salary come that time. So those are things to keep in mind, especially if you're brand new to the field and you're like, I'm making a career transition into environmental science. I'm going to get the master's degree, but I have no environmental science background. Start getting that experience so that way you can position yourself to get that role that you want. Start with internships, volunteering. I mean, there's so many different ways, not just for environmental field, but any field to gain that experience while you're in your degree program to set yourself up financially in the future. So those are things to think about also with that whole time commitment aspect. It's not just academic work, it's the professional side and personal side of things too. But think about the funding, what's available to you, what's the school have available to you, and what does that look like in terms of deciding if you know you can go for the degree now in the future, or if it might not be in the cards at this, for you because it's not something you need. Yeah, Kelsey, any insight on these topics?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And I mean, really, as far as the application process goes for a doctoral program, everywhere's different. Every school's
Yes,
different. It's the same.
same for
It's
masters.
absolutely same for masters. Some require the GRE, some don't. You're gonna have to take
Mhm,
the was it LSAT for law school.
mhm,
It's really just gonna depend. I think that there are plenty of institutions that are kind of going away from the GRE. I personally didn't have to take it, and which I'm appreciative
yes.
of because
I did not have to take
I'm not
anything
a,
either for here in my
yeah, I've
program.
never ever been a great standardized test taker. Give me an essay anytime. So, those requirements are really going to change depending on the school, depending on the program. One pretty common feature of all of the application process for this level is you likely will have an interview as part of it. That's a really important piece to this level of study. So, what I want you to think about and pay attention for a doctoral level program is, are you presenting yourself as the kind of candidate that the university will be proud to hood and call doctor? I think that is a nice way to flip it, right? Like, how am I presenting myself as a well-qualified candidate that this institution wants? Because these programs are often kind of like the crown jewel of the school. They, competitive enrollment or like low enrollment sometimes. I mean, yeah, it depends on the class and depends on where you go, but not a lot of people make it through doctoral programs because they're quite intensive. So they're usually programs that the institution is very proud of. So think about it from the university side. They should want you as a student at their institution. And I do think that applies to master's programs
Mhm,
as well.
mhm.
But you're kind of gonna join in on this sort of elite level of study. And you want the institution to want you and be proud of you as well. So that's my advice there to kind of flip it a little bit.
Mhm.
They should want me. So go in with that air of confidence, not arrogance, confidence. There's a big key
Yes,
difference there.
absolutely. And then when it comes to succeeding in graduate school, a lot of this we have touched base on throughout today's presentation, but very, very important reminders and things to keep in mind is when it comes to succeeding in graduate school, there are a few strategies to keep in mind. First, have a plan, but stay flexible. Set goals for your coursework, your research, career development, but be ready to adjust as opportunities or challenges arise. Because, like Kelsey said earlier, time around us doesn't stop because we're in a degree program. So, flexibility and learning to adapt is going to be essential. For me, I can struggle with sometimes that sort of thing. So like that was a growth moment for me in my master's program. So just be open-minded and staying flexible. Second, build that strong support network. Surround yourself with peers and mentors and advisors who can provide you guidance and encouragement, accountability. Accountability is so important to making sure you're staying on track with reaching your goals that you've set for yourself. Learning to say no to distractions. I believe Kelsey hit this earlier as well. Graduate school demands focus, so be intentional with your time and your energy. Sometimes you're going to have to say, no, I can't go to that cookout, or no, I need to take another 10 minutes to write this paper and then I can go
Yeah.
do whatever it is that I'm going to do for myself.
Yeah, and
Um,
it sucks to have to say no to the fun cookout when all you have to do is annotate a bibliography that, you know, it's
yeah.
like you do
Uh-huh.
have to say no to the fun stuff. It's yeah.
Yes. It's important. But it's also important that self-care and things to have that balance
Yeah.
too. So,
Mhm.
but there are going to be distractions and you're going to have to say no to them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yes. And then take full advantage of your university's resources. Everything from the library to counseling services to academic advisors and student groups can help you succeed. Here at APUS, we have a library. We
Mhm.
have Chaplain and You Will and Talk Campus. We have a lot of mental health resources available for students
Mhm.
and alumni. So academic advisors, and we even have a lot of different student organizations here as well that can help you succeed if this would be the place that you consider. But even if it's not, those are things to look for to help you succeed in graduate school when you are doing your program research. It's also important to maintain that open mind. Like I just said a little bit ago, be willing to learn from others.
Mhm.
Consider new perspectives. I mean, education is all about learning new perspectives. We're not always right. Sometimes there's no right or wrong answer. It is just there. But be willing to be open to that and adapt your approach when needed. And then don't shy away from challenges because that's what this is about. It's about being challenged, whether it's refining your writing, deepening your research skills, mastering your subject, embracing these challenges is it's really going to help you grow academically, professionally, and personally. So in all areas of life, accept the challenge and accept help. That's my advice on that one. And
Yes.
then really remember that the journey itself is supposed to be transformative. That's, a whole being open-minded and flexible and learning new perspectives and information. Graduate school isn't just about earning that degree, it's about developing as a thinker, professional, and just being that lifelong learner. So, those are things to keep in mind and tips and advice to help you to succeed in graduate school.
All right, and I know we're like a
Yep.
teeny bit over time. We just get so passionate. We love talking about this. I'm happy to hang around for a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions. Taylor, I don't want to speak for you. I don't know if you have a, a
Oh, I
conflict.
do. Yes, I have time. We're actually right at the very end of it. We had this slide and that was it. So, but yes, if we want to go ahead and start taking some questions or you want me to wrap up?
Hey, question time. I'm free.
Okay, sounds good. Well, here, decision takeaway. Uh, Align your decision with career requirements, industry standards, personal readiness and life circumstances, and then those long-term goals and ROI. Those are some big decision takeaways when considering if the school or those next steps for master's or doctorate is right for you. So um, thank you all for attending. Please feel free to reach out to career services to get connected with our career coaches and insight on resources that can help assist you on your academic and career journey. There will be a short survey to complete and would love your feedback. So as you leave here, you'll see it's very, very quick. But yes, let's open the floor for any questions or clarification that anybody might have.